Well, we're working on the polarization of light. So kind of just walk you through my setup here. This is a light box, and the light box is connected to a power source back here in order to give me a beam of light that shines out in this direction. And I went to eBay and bought some polarized lenses here, and so they kind of look like this right here. So this is the polarized lenses, and I cut one to fit inside my light box area here, so one of the lenses was permanently fixed to the light box. And then up here I had my light sensor probe, and that was shining into the light box. And then over here I have my computer that's hooked up to the LabQuest Pro. And so then we were ready to start our experiment. First thing I did was to get a zero calibration on this, and so I held this out in such a way that all the light was blocked. And then on the LabQuest Pro I was able to zero out the light intensity, and that got us started on the calibration process for the polarization of light. Alright, then the first thing we did was we rotated this back 90 degrees until we had full light going through, and we took our data point. And then I used a protractor and I set the angle of the light to this, like so. And once I got it set, I was able to move it out a lot more careful than that, and I got my angles as I went around 360 degrees. And the way it turned out was a little sketchy, but the data points are reasonable. They're just not probably as pretty as I'd like to see them. So anyway, let me just walk you through that real quick. To start off with, we had full intensity of light, and there wasn't a large drop on the shallow angles of 15 and 30 degrees. But as soon as we got to the higher angles going up to out of phase, it went all the way down and dropped very quickly. This zero out was at 90 degrees, and then as soon as we start, we have some small, at the shallow angles, again we have some small fluxes of light there. But then as soon as we get to the higher angles, it jumps up. I would have liked to have seen a data point more in between here instead of going from almost nothing to a lot. And then you can see we have a bunch of data points that kind of stay open there. And well, I'll tell you about the errors here in a second as far as I'm concerned. But as soon as we get to 180 degrees, we're at full light again, as we are in zero. And then as we start with the shallow angles, it starts to darken back up again. And then at 270 degrees, we're completely blocked off again. And then it starts to go back up. Now, we do have an outlier here, which is this point. And I redid that point because it bothered me so bad, and that point ended up 135 the second time I did it. 135 is roughly in here, so we would have had our graph move up in this direction here, and that point should probably be more up in this area. So we do see this curve that goes like this if all the data points are where they're supposed to be. And that's kind of what I expected to see in the experiment. Now, let me just say that this is one of the hardest experiments that I've done as far as actually trying to get the experiment to work right. The flux on the light was so sensitive. If you didn't have the polarized filters pressed just right against the metal, if there was a little bow in it or something, I mean, the fluctuations were pretty intense, like sometimes 40 or 60 lux. So and it was ever so touchy, you know. And then if you tried to push against the light box, then it would change the light too. So I ended up taping everything down really solid, and it got hot, and it was hard to hold, and anyway, there was quite the challenges. It took me about 2 hours to get this thing where I was reading the data right, and I'm still not happy about it. But it's just small little changes in the apparatuses would change enough. I could see the general curve as it's supposed to be, and I'm happy with the science behind it. I just think the data collecting techniques need to be improved quite a bit. If I was running this with students, I'd have to figure out a way to make it, clean it up a little bit more. But anyway, I'll go ahead and apply a curve onto it. One thing I haven't figured out yet is how to edit this point that's really bothering me. I've got a table over here that I just want to change the data to it to move that point. I'm sure there's got to be a way to do that, but I haven't figured it out yet. But once I do that, I'll do a curve fit and see if I can get an equation to match it, and I'll send that to you on the email. Okay, thanks.